Emailing it on the computer.
And then you go to the cloud.
Okay.
All right, I'll call this meeting of the Parkview Health Center Committee to order. Let's see, item number 2, the August 18th, 2022 Parkview Health Center meeting minutes. Motion and second.
Second,
All right, any changes?
yes, a couple. Item number 4 reads, the spelling isn't right there, so it should read financial. Then spell it out. Oh. And then, anywhere where it says my last name, it should be written, should be typed out with an E-L. At the very bottom of the first page, it says special with an E-L. It should just be an L, no E. And I think that's all I saw.
Okay, anything else? All right, all in favor of keeping the minutes as amended, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Carries 5-0. All right, item number 3, public forum. Do you have anybody on Zoom who would like to address the committee? If you would, please feel free to open or unmute yourself and speak. Okay.
There's a telephone number on here that someone had called in. Now they're off again. They keep kind of coming in and out.
And I guess just a point of, I think it's just a point of order. The agenda doesn't really provide an opportunity for introduction of new people, but I was wondering if we could take some time to introduce some new people. Okay.
Okay, then call one more time. If anybody on Zoom would like to address the committee, you can unmute yourself. Okay, I'll close that portion of the meeting and we'll move to item number 4, the financial report.
So through August, we should be at 67% of our projected budget. And our revenues are running behind that number. Operating revenues are at 54%. And that's below what we had budgeted. Originally, right now with the total budget or total actual revenues of $9,480,000. And if you look at the total labor, we're also running actually at a lower percentage, 54%. So actually our revenues are a little higher than our labor running. Travel, we did a lot of the travel last May, so that's why that's going a little more. We'll be moving to use up a little bit more of that in the coming months, so we'll be real close to 100% of that one. Capital, the only thing left in capital is the dishwasher for the kitchen and the budget adjustment going to P&F 1st of October, and then getting moved in October, and we'll be able to complete that or start that project to get that completed this year. So then that should be all taken care of. The rest of the Other operating is looking good. Nothing really standing out too much. Even our professional services are still down a bit.
What's the condition of your contingency fund right now?
Right now, what we had at the end of 2021, just got that information from the auditors. Probably 2 or 3 weeks. They showed me
5 million?
yeah. And so if we actually look at our projected debt, the deficit is on so we're looking at a actual projected deficit of 1.3 million. If we would be using 8/12 of the budget, at this point, we'd be at a $2.1 million loss. So we're actually doing like 792,000 better than what we had budgeted. Doing pretty well, relatively. That's pretty much about it. We did have our meeting with the county executive. And they have added on to what we had budgeted about 146,000 submitted. They added on. They added extra in our travel area, $6,871 there. They added on for our care phone upgrade. That was $43,000 for the actual phones, $3,500 for the extra control panel. Our phone, the actual phones themselves, $43,400. The control panel was $3,500, and then we had additional upgrades to upgrade the servers and professional service of $12,300. That's all to do with our care phone system. And then they added on $33,200 for the media upgrade. And they added on $42,816 for the exterior caulking of the building. Those were the add-ons that we requested. Yeah, and those are ones that he has put into his executive. Will be in his executive budget. Yeah, yeah. So we had projected having a fund balance applied in on our request of $1,800,000. They're leaving the tax levy the same at $960,000, but upping our fund balance applied to $2,023,000.
Any questions on the financial report?
I do have a question. That's for you because I know you have an answer. So in order to get this Parkview budget put together, and I had somebody from the outside just look at this and they have these questions and I have these questions. So we're going to levy the taxpayers 960,000 some odd dollars. We're also now gonna take 2,023,000 from hard fees. Okay. Which is interesting because Parkview always helped to balance the entire budget by having money come out of their fund to help budget. So 3 million, 3.5.
Well, they were applying our fund balance to help balance the tax.
So
Their contingency fund.
Yes.
eventually, Scott, eventually, we're gonna run out of this money.
Yes.
And one of the reasons is gonna be because we don't have the census.
Yes.
So that's nothing earth shattering here. But to give you some of your wants, I've never had where we've gotten to this point where we've got ad requests. They usually have been in the
Mhm.
department's budget. And so I thought, I wonder what the other departments are doing because we need some of these things. I understand that. So now some have been added and that's another 146,000 that jacks that B item up. So my thought here, from my perspective, is we can't keep doing this. So I'm hoping that I'll hear good news today about the census and that you just can't keep doing this. And maybe that's a conservative approach, but I'm being honest about it. It can't keep happening. Just like we can't take this pot over here and keep taking from it. And I'm not just picking on Parkview, I know, but this is where I am today with this.
The original, how it originally started is Parkview 5 years ago had a $10 million fund balance. And they had thought that that was too big for us. So they wanted to apply some of that in the budget to basically bring down our fund balance. Well, the first year, nothing happened. We applied, $1 million or $2 million, and we never used it because we had a high enough census, and we got enough additional revenues coming in from IPD, additional money that came in, and we never ended up using it that year. So the next year, we said, well, we didn't use any, so we're going to apply it again, a little bit more. And that was 2020, I believe. And because we got a pretty good influx of COVID money at that point, we didn't use a ton there. But in 2021, we didn't get quite as much COVID money. 2022, we haven't got hardly any COVID money. So 21, we've used a good chunk, and 22 are using the 1.3. So yeah, we can't end up going forward using $3 million every year. We just can't.
It'll run out.
Yeah.
And things will change. When Parkview had 100, and I keep going back to this, when we had 156 before COVID, we were doing well, really well.
We were building up that.
That's why I talk about the census, and I know it's fine. They only get the report. Oh, that's good news. But you can't keep doing this. Parkview has always been self-sufficient, very self-sufficient, and it's a great facility.
We've had higher tax levies in the past too.
Right.
So I mean, 2019, we had a tax levy of about 1.8 million. Now we're at 900,000.
So that's a good point.
Supervisor Dort.
I just have a general, next one, Mike, could you go over the financial of Parkview, the general basis of it tonight? What I'm looking for, I understand that. I don't totally get this. I mean, I went to my health board meeting today after our last meeting, and it's the same terminology you done, but I guess I would like to sometime in the near future, next one, discuss the general finances, what makes it up for you, so we can, I understand that.
You have a pretty good case for ARPA money, you know. And whatever you funnel in from ARPA could be the basis for your contingency fund buildup. Okay? Nobody has raised their hand for you in that meeting that we will be having on the 27th.
We've got, you have an agenda item for.
I recognize. I think that should start taking a look at what qualifies. And then I've got a packet that I didn't bring along, but I copied it several times. I will be more than happy to share that with you.
Oh, I probably have half of it. Of the regulations somewhere that I can dig out.
This is after the final rule has been set, so. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Anything else on the financial report? Okay. All right, thank you very much. We'll move on. Our administrator, our new administrator, welcome. You want to just start by introducing yourself a little bit for the committee?
Yeah. So my name is Lindsay Gaska. I live right here in Oshkosh. I've lived in Oshkosh for the last 5 years. Originally born and raised in the Appleton area. I've been working as a nursing home administrator for the last 8 years. I've worked in both the nonprofit, just recently left nonprofit, and I've also worked in the for-profit part of the side of the nursing home business. So glad to be at Parkview. It's a beautiful facility. Staff absolutely love working there. There's a ton of longevity that's there. So the community should really be proud of the skilled nursing center that they have here. Mhm.
We all got your resume.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We got the nice letter that you sent out and welcoming. We're glad to see you're here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad to be here. Mhm.
Welcome. I know you've had a very, very exciting first 2 weeks, jumping right in with a budget.
Yes, it's very interesting coming from the private sector to the public sector. There's a lot of changes, so still trying to get my feet underneath me here. Do you want me to just talk? Okay. Ashley made this report because I am so new. But we did have a COVID outbreak in the month of August. Currently, we do not have any residents that are positive. Our last positive staff member was September 12th. We did have that outbreak that went through, so we will be in outbreak status until the 26th, pending further testing, as long as we don't have any further positive staff members or residents. Our monthly average census was 114. In July it was 119, and in June was 113. So a little bit of a drop there. Just from my history as a nursing home administrator, typically the month of August is a pretty rough month. Normally you don't have a very high census in the month of August. So that is typical. It's not unique to Parkview. We had 6 admissions, 17 deaths and discharges. We do have 16 on the waiting list. Private pay and VA is 21%. 68% of our residents are on medical assistance or Medicaid. 4% are on family care, 0 insurance, 3 Medicare Advantage plans, and then 4% as Medicare residents. These are our open positions that we have next. So we have 42 CNA full-time status positions that are open. We've got 12.4 nurses, 1.5 food and nutrition. So kitchen staff that we need, 3 housekeeping, and then we also have 1 administrative coordinator position that is open. Our previous administrator coordinator is coming back sometimes 2 days a week, just to help out of the kindness of her heart. So bless her heart. No survey history at this point. There hasn't been any activity. Projects that we have right now, we've got the training center that is looking to open sometime mid-October. Yeah, that's exciting. And then the other one was a dishwasher replacement, looking to send that to P&F in October. So. Mhm.
What types of things need to be done in order to get the training center?
The ceiling needs to be put in. The flooring needs to be put in and plumbing fixtures need to be put in yet.
I'll refer these to whoever I think has answers. And no offense, Lindsay, if I can't see you up.
Oh, that's fine.
I know Ashley will have to say. So when the staffing update, is that the shortages that we have? Is it as if we were full for, or just to meet the needs for having 114?
Those are the staffing open vacancies that we have for our full budget for, so it'd be for the full facility.
So we can live with some of this now.
Right.
And, you know, that's my point. Number on 16 is good. And I don't know who to address this to, so I'll go back to Ashley. Are people still calling to be put on the waiting list? Or is it kind of a quiet scenario right now?
I believe that there are, because our waiting list numbers were down last month, and now they're back up to 16 again. So I think that was an addition of 5 from last month.
Okay.
But it does kind of wax and wane of whether people are ready, ready to come in, if we have the right neighborhood available, the right room that they want to go into. So it really depends on when that person
But
wants
the
to.
community is showing interest.
Oh, very much so. I mean, our referrals far exceed what we can accept.
Yeah, that is not an issue. I
And then
can
I have one for
really got
you,
some
and
writing.
you came from the private sector, maybe you could give me a little insight into that. Are the private facilities running into the same thing with those centers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because it's an up and down. If you have a COVID outbreak or a resident that has it, then you can't take people, right? So.
Absolutely. Yep. I've worked at centers now that we've closed a whole floor. From a 3-floor building, we've closed a whole floor. I've worked at a building as well where we've closed a whole wing. So closing units like Parkview, they've got a couple of units that are closed. That is typical right now in the skilled nursing center arena.
Want to get some progress in getting back to a real figure of where we can be. Okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I think too, just to address some of the questions that you may have, a lot of the census base is because of our staffing. And it's pretty much 100% because of the staffing.
Staffing comes into play with number of residents.
Right.
I wanted to bring up one more thing. Since you have the PVHC training center. So I have found out that Nina High School, and I think this is good in a way, they're going to offer CNA certification for the kids in the high school. They can take the courses and then they can get certified, which is a good thing, because I know you were doing an education tour trying to get people enthused about CNA. So I was glad to hear that, and I hope other schools pick up on that. And Fox Valley does have a great program, but to get the kids in the high schools the information, I think is very good, but I know you were visiting high school, so.
Correct. And I just reached out to Alex. So he's our regional person through CISA, and CISA's with the state to get in youth apprentice. I guess kids from the local area high schools. So he's from like Winnebago, Amro, Nina. He works with a lot of Oshkosh schools. So I've been in touch with him over the past few weeks, and he is going to the local schools here within the next month and going to look for candidates that are interested in coming to Parkview. And then he's going to meet with us on the candidates. We should be bringing in some youth apprentice students. That's 450 hours that they have to do for their credit and evaluations with us. So hopefully we can work with them to
Great idea.
start that program back.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We also had a meeting too with local area nursing homes that are looking at bringing in refugees for certain positions and working with them to get them the positions. A lot of them like working in like the housekeeping and the food service department just because they do have a language barrier. So the actual direct resident care can somewhat be challenging until they take the English classes and lessons, but we're working on, you know, the possibilities of bringing in some refugees for some of those positions as well.
Can the kids in with you?
Mhm.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
So I had a meeting with Julie Davids, who owns a home care organization in the community, but also works for the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce as its education kind of coordinator. And she's looking for opportunities to be able to connect, students within the Oshkosh Chambers kind of area to potentially these types of opportunities. So I would either encourage one of you to reach out to Julie Davids, or I can encourage her to reach out to one of you. So
Yeah, most
who would be the
definitely.
preferred person?
You can reach out to me if you like.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anything else? If we do get out of the COVID outbreak status on the 26th, how long will we have been in that status?
Since May.
Consistently. It's a long time.
I think for the whole duration of COVID, since COVID hit, we've only ever been out for about 2 to 3 month period without having a positive staff member or resident.
And how much of that waiting list then is sort of because of those COVID restrictions? Like if we worked in a COVID status today, would we be able to bring in 3 more people, or staffing, as Supervisor Gabbard was so low that we're sort of maxed out for staffing?
So the only time we cannot admit is when we get an initial resident case in the facility, and then we have to do facility-wide testing until we don't get any further cases. So right now we're still considered in an outbreak monitoring period, but it's only because of staff. So we can take admissions, or we have been taking admissions. But to further answer your question, to increase the census, we do need to increase our staffing before that happens, so.
And then, do you typically see like a bump in employment or applications or anything as the college year starts up again? I know you talk about having students work in the past and all that kind of changes, but is this a like increasing time or decreasing time?
This is always a decrease in time. So between our February and April months and between your August and November months are always our decreased times. Because we actually have a lot of students that go back to school and they're not picking up as many hours, or they're coming home for the summer, they work and then they go back to school. So these are always more of our decreased staffing times.
Student would have to work to be a CNA or we'll be in minimum always have to work with.
Essentially, we have our casual call status. They could do a casual call and pick up as they need or are able to. We do have like a, minimum hour requirement, but they don't go per week. It's per schedule. So it allows a lot of flexibility, and we do 6 to 8 week schedules. If they wanted a status position so that they qualify for the shift differentials, it would just be 1 day per 2-week period.
All right, then we will move on to item number 6, information and discussion, 2023 budget submission to county executive.
I kind of went over a lot of it, so.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add about the so, just give Lindsay just a second. If there's anything.
I don't really have
Okay.
anything to add, no.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you.
So what, are not being put in by the county executive kind of staff, and
So if you go down on the ad requests, so D, the ambulance and receiving door replacement, we felt that that could wait.
that is included.
No, this is not, these are the items that are not included.
So the 3 first ones are included.
Yes.
So, so one more grade change, tuition reimbursement, those are all.
The tuition reimbursement, we have added, that was a separate request into the budget as well after our budget meeting. So we did provide a copy of that for you to read, but it would be another addition of approximately 40,000 that we felt for the tuition reimbursement. And that would be the ad request form that's in the packet. That outlines details of what we're looking to do with that tuition reimbursement. I know when we did the incentive programs and things like that, it was brought up, you know, an idea with education and what we can do to further the education and knowledge of our current staff and encourage them to grow within not only Parkview, but for Winnebago County as a whole. And we feel that this would help some of those students, especially to gain the knowledge to be able to do that with their careers. So it's outlined in the justification below. And Lindsay can kind of talk to that a little bit.
It's outlined below. So we also thought that this would be helpful as well for staff retention. Because we are struggling, obviously, this is not a secret. We've talked about it hand over hand here in regard to the staffing shortage, but how would we would distribute this on a case by case, first come, first serve basis.
You just make it known to everybody.
Correct.
Write a memo, hang it on the board and leave it at that, or you want to encourage people to get.
Yes.
We would, and their reimbursement would be based on their employment status. So if you are employed at a 40%, then you would be eligible for $2,000 annually, potentially. If you were employed at 80% at minimum, then you would be eligible for $4,000 annually.
We can look at creating, you know, a contract per se with the person that's applying for it. They would have to submit the payment for their courses along with their GPA or their grade average to also be able to qualify. And then we would bring it to committees to select who would.
We discussed this about 2 or 3 months ago,
Mhm.
not how. we're gonna do it, but very correct. Encourage people to stay with the organization and stay in continuing education to, you know, maintain their abilities.
I think Lindsay had a great idea with this too, is that we didn't want to limit it necessarily just for college courses, where she wanted to open it up to certificates and different, you know, specialized courses or things too, if someone wants to get a certificate in, say, wound care or something, that they could possibly apply for that as well.
They have to have a direct application to what they're doing
Mhm.
to be admitted into program, to gain new education or
Right.
new credits.
Mhm.
But they have to have an application of their employment parallel with, because they wouldn't go to school and take swimming or something of that sort. They would be more directly applicable to their, I don't know.
Yeah, but we stated it as a healthcare related field.
Mhm.
Who is gonna be your senior person to apply to oversee the application, oversee the way it's directed? Who is that person gonna be?
Probably me. It's probably gonna be me. And also Doug. Because they're gonna have to bring him documentation and HR documentation of a passing grade in that particular course in order to get reimbursed. Mhm.
This to me would be informed and updated, but not, it says here that we'd be, this committee would be the one who would have to approve the request. I don't think I need to do that as a committee member. I think I could trust you people doing that. I think we would like to know the numbers, how many people are in the program, but not who's part of the program. So that's up to
Sure.
you administrators. And so that's one thing.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll say when I wrote this, I'm obviously very new and not sure of the structure. So I also wanted to make sure that I wasn't stepping on anybody's toes. So if the community felt that they wanted a voice in there, that they had the opportunity for that.
I think my understanding is that we would also need a companion resolution or ordinance change that would actually allow this to go into effect. And so this budget request doesn't actually create a program, it just budgets the money. And so it'd still be up to this committee, who ultimately in conjunction with the county board and perhaps probably personnel and finance to decide what that, what that resolution or ordinance would look like to govern that. So I think to those questions of like, who's going to make that final decision or, things like that, we'll have a chance to craft that with staff down the road.
So, since it's not part of the budget, how do we make this happen? Because I think this is a very good idea. I think county should do more of this. So I'm asking advice from the chairman or director or Doug, how do I make this happen? Am I willing to support an amendment to the budget? I'm willing to do what you said, Cody, if I have to support a resolution to create this ordinance, I'm willing to do that. But I think it's very meaningful effort should be explored and done. I mean, same with what we're talking about going to high school when you're with people, that's another part of it. I think we have to start getting the young individuals interested in this healthcare field. I gotta tell you, I'm gonna relate to my experience when I was in Parkview. I had, a couple of people, hey, we heard a county board or founders think about doing that. Well, that was 2 years ago. Now it's a little more shape to it. So, Sherman, everyone in this room, I'm willing to support an amendment to do this. You tell me when and where, how to do it. So thank you.
Yeah, I think, probably what's here is relatively set in stone for what you would like for this program. And I think that's something that we can work then once we have a final budget from the executive to put an amendment in. Right? Okay. And then there'd be a separate track that I think we'll be working on to create that formal ordinance to operationalize this.
Mhm.
So just interested to know how you came up with the numbers of employees that may be eligible for it. Could you have 5 full-time and 10 part-time?
Potentially.
So,
Mhm.
I mean,
Potential, and I think part of that is because when you're working in a 0.8 status, you're working 4 days a week. it's hard if you have other priorities in life to have, to do classes. So it'd probably be a more limited number of full-time employees that would take advantage of this program, where the part-time employees would have more time to apply themselves to courses. So you'd probably have more applicants. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. And then, further down in the justification, there's a sentence that starts with corrective action. And so creatively, how does corrective action play into the decision-making of providing this option to employees?
They would just be taken into consideration when you have applicants coming through. I probably would not approve somebody who is on a suspension if there's another person who's had no corrective action. Chances are is if you're already at a suspension level, I'm not sure how long you're actually going to be with the county. So
The reason why I make a point of that is because of just the placement of the word.
Oh,
in
sure.
The sentence
Sure.
led me to believe that there was more of an emphasis on corrective action, where your real emphasis is going to be on performance evaluations, reviews,
Mhm.
and then creating a hierarchy kind of within that, and corrective action is just part of that.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I know you're gonna get sick of this, but whatever. So I see some loopholes here, so I want to get some clarity. So you talk about approvals are only for the course and the semester given. So is an employee able to take a course and pay for that course, get a C or higher? Which I find kind of low, but okay. So this is a retroactive. They have to go sign up for the course or the semester. So can you take just a course? You can go to UWO and take a course,
Mhm.
or you could take a whole semester.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay. And then they somehow take a loan or pay for it or whatever.
Mhm.
And then when they get their report card, they show it to you and then the reimbursement comes into play. When do they apply for that? When they sign up for the course?
Yes.
That would be what I would think.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
my intent is to take this course or this semester,
Mhm.
and I will see you later with my grade, and I'm working out here.
Yep.
So it can be either a course or a full semester. Because maybe they're going to want to go to nursing school.
Mhm. That's our hope.
But do they have to be an employee here before this even kicks in?
Yes.
Through their probationary period.
Yeah. Through their through their probationary period. Mhm.
Right? And then they stay with you for a year on completion of that course
Mhm.
or that semester. Can they do it again for the next semester?
Very good.
They wouldn't be eliminated from the process because they've already been accepted and you paid whatever amount of their tuition. They could come back and say, I'm gonna do this again, because in the long run, if they do take another semester, they're that much closer to
Correct.
whatever they want to be. Okay.
However, it's an annual limit. So if they've applied for, if they're a full-time employee and they're requesting $2,000, they only have $2,000 for the following semester. Or if it's a part-time status staff member and they are applied and they want the whole $2,000 that first trimester, they're not going to get anything for the second trimester.
But they could keep coming back every year.
Annually, yes. Mhm.
Would they have more? I don't know, I guess if somebody looked like they were showing some progress in this course study, would they be treated as equal as somebody who applies for it? You look at each application, so somebody that already got it would be eliminated for the next year when they came back in?
That's why we put on there like the first come, first served basis. So
Okay.
essentially, if
So if
you,
you were proactive, and they came out and said, this is what my plan is,
Mhm.
so I'll be visiting you after every year, semester, whatever, you would, okay. But
I
if
think
they were-
encouraging that initiative, I think initiative
If
is
they had
gonna
enough
be a lot of it.
initiatives come to you, and first come, first served, and that's how that.
Mhm.
I went through one of these things with AT&T. And normally you set the arrangement for the class first. Then you go to the administrator, or you, in my case, call the administrator. Look, I'm planning on taking a class. What kind of sharing do we have over the cost of this, so I know how much I have to pay out. This class lasted for almost 2 years. Okay, the new semester, I have to go back, present a grade, and then wait for the following semester to see whether the whole thing was going to be paid for or not. In essence, this can be it looks like it could be set up as a rollover every budget year, okay? So that if it were set up similar to a scholarship program, only not a scholarship program. A place where you arrange to take your classes, arrange to get paid for taking your classes at a certain level. I think it's a great idea. I really do. I think there's a start here that we could really roll into an overall education program for the entire county administration. And people would be able to take classes within, say, finance, or classes within facilities, or whatever, engineering, or whatever.
Mhm.
And if it caught on, we did a real good job with managing it and allowing people to stay within their ladder or their niche or their funnel of education for what they're doing, rather than to move up to basketball or swimming or something. You've got to
Right.
stay within. And, if it's designed to have a certain amount of discipline to it, I think you really.
Mhm. Yeah. And I want to address the C grade or higher. And that came about because the majority of the nursing classes, a passing grade is a C or higher, with the exception of a couple courses that I think is a B, is a passing.
Been down that road, I went to college, so I get it, but
Sure.
to me, C is just average. But, so, then the other thing is, and I had a scholarship, so I know how that process works. I think so might reflect that. The county will deduct the student loan reimbursement from their last paycheck. So if you gave someone $2,000, their last paycheck is probably not gonna be $2,000. If they're, let's be practical, if they're CNA. So how are you gonna get that back? You're saying their last paycheck, well, if their last paycheck, they didn't meet the 1 year, how are you gonna handle that?
So the last sentence on here, it says the employee has 60 days from employment separation to reimburse Winnebago County.
Yeah, then you're gonna go to corporate counsel and have a lawsuit against them?
Could they set up a care plan, like a payment plan with you to pay them back?
I mean, that would be fine too. Yeah.
That's gotta be a hard job.
In this situation.
Not everybody comes rolling in with a box, to you.
I mean, the goal really is that they complete a 1 year. I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask. Though, I would hope that most.
I have some other incentive stuff. This is all great. I wish I would have had this when I went to school, but I didn't. So this sounds really great. and really good, but it's on the taxpayer's back. And we gave all these raises out. We worked really hard to get all these incentives out here.
Mhm.
And yet, we're still low on staff.
So it's sad to me because I sit here today and this is the greatest facility in the whole
County, and I wanted to stay open. But we're doing all these incentives. But since the county board passed all of those fee increases, if you want to talk, if the committee talks about it, and we're still low on staff. I don't know how we go out there and explain this away, and I am a supporter of Parkview. But this just keeps growing, and I don't know. I think there's gonna reach a point where, can we, and this is being honest, can we keep this facility open with what we've got going? Can we get that census going? And I hope we can, because that's what makes this thing roll. We have great staff. And all the way down to the kitchen, we have just great people working here. I don't want to lose this facility, but other counties have closed theirs because they looked at the numbers and said, this isn't working. We can't have a county nursing home. And the talk is out there, and I'm not the one talking it, okay? So we need some feedback on how this is really working. I think this is a tough sell. As a taxpayer, I would think, that's great that you want to do that, but I'm paying for this. And am I going to see the benefit to Parkview by doing this? I think you will, but I'm not sure. You see what I'm coming from? You guys, I know you like it, but I'm looking at the other side. Yes, we can add this into the budget, and yes, we can do this. And actually, I don't know, you can only tax people so much.
How many months ago excuse me, but how many months ago that we put the incentive program together? It wasn't much more than 3 months
Okay.
ago,
Mhm.
okay, that it was approved at the board level, okay, so it's been before. We haven't given them enough time to operate, enough time to really grow, grow further on it. And if you don't give it enough time, and if you don't support it, and if you, step back away and say, well, other care operations or nursing homes or whatever are failing. We don't look at other nursing homes to their failing. We look at what we can do to get better, and we're getting better. But we have to give it some time to operate. 6 months is a little better time than 3 months.
Well, I
A
think,
year is a lot better, so you can kind of measure and make those measurements in that length of time, but you're gonna have to measure it.
Mhm.
when I
I'd
think,
also suggest probably that those are measures that brought us to industry standards. Like, those weren't measures that probably put us ahead of, anybody
By
else.
no means, right?
And so perhaps the effect that we really, that in 3 months we've really seen from that is that number of FTE that's open has gone up. I think over the summer, or earlier in this board's, or this committee's, time together, we were seeing more like 50 or more FTE open on that CNA level, 15 RNs. I agree. I think a longer tenure of analysis would probably help on the, where those incentives are. But I think it's right. It is a question of how do we get from A to B, where we have, we're not just stemming the outflow of people, but we're actually like maybe reducing that, saying how do we open up more wings or more neighborhoods and things like that.
We had 30 and a half, when we approved that at the board, 30 and a half shortage of CNAs. Yeah. So now we're up. So time is of the essence, I get that. So you understand my concern about census.
Yep.
Census will spin, if we get 40 more people, it'll get it back to where. So I have a concern for this place, but I don't know how much time you say, well, give it 6 months, give it a year. I understand that. But I'm just so hopeful that this will all work. And the ending, because sometimes in government, we don't have an ending. I hope the ending works, because if I were a young person right now and could get some reimbursement, I'd be out here working.
Mhm.
But I think it's hard to convince people to become a CNA. Because they don't know what it entails. That's why I think that. And I'm not saying hire high school kids, I'm saying get the information to the schools, so to the kids. This is a job opportunity. This is what it entails. And I think you've done that. I've heard through the grapevine that is out there educating them. I don't mean just go to the high school kids and hire them, but let them know it's a career. You've got people retiring from here that have been CNAs for 30 years.
People don't want to be lifetime CNAs anymore, though. They want to be nurses. That's what
you're CNA for 30 years. That's okay too.
that's fine, yeah, but from my experience right now, majority of the CNAs are young kids that are in nursing school. And they're going to school to be a nurse.
And this is a stepping stone.
And this is a stepping stone, yep. And Parkview is a stepping stone for them to get their CNA. They work as a CNA, they go to school, they become a nurse. And hopefully this program helps them, help us get to that stepping stone, because eventually we're gonna have nurses that are gonna be retiring. So that training center that's being built, that's gonna be super helpful for us, because we are going to consistently be having to hire and train new CNAs
Just for
in-
Parkview.
into the field.
Train for Parkview. Because Bethel, the old Bethel Hall, whichever it's called, you know, they're training CNAs in-house now. So I understand, I supported that building, but you know, it's a process for all of this to work. I think we have the staff that can make it work. So, fingers crossed.
And I think you made a good point that we had to do things back in June to get us just up to where facilities were currently. And I think that this is another thing that we have to do to get us to where facilities are currently. Everyone else out there is offering tuition reimbursement and scholarships opportunities or some sort of furthering education. We don't. So I think this is also, like you said, another step to those incentives in the pay increase. Another thing that our staff are waiting for, that wage analysis. Ultimately, we cannot compete anymore. We just can't. We aren't competing, and we're not staying abreast of where we need to be to have staff join us. We've had numerous applicants turn us down. I would say in the last month, 4 or 5 people have said, no, I can't accept your offer because you don't pay enough.
So where does government go? So you've got private. Let's just put.
Right. I'm just, you know, this is what's
You may
happening.
never catch up.
Right.
You can offer free employment atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? If it does exist out here. And being having been in other nursing homes. And I would pass on putting relatives in any of those. So the community still is talking this up. Okay, and they should. So I'm still supporting this. It's a slippery slope to me to see how far we go with all this.
I think we need the community support. It is right now. It's not, I mean, we're at a point where our census is not going to jump up. I can honestly say that anytime soon. And it's reality at this point because there aren't enough bodies to be staffed in our facility to care for the residents. And yes, we could alter staffing ratios at this point, but we don't want to. We don't want to jeopardize that quality of care that Parkview stands for.
So with 110 residents, you're taking care of it right now. You're taking care of staffing, taking care of the residents, the utmost, I'm sure. How many more could you put in before it becomes, how many more residents before it's a critical employee versus care for the residents?
I can say right now that staff are being mandated daily.
Yeah.
Already.
But realizing that you put 168 residents.
Correct.
So anything is based on that. But we never were at 160. All right, thanks.
I think you guys are doing what you need to do. Just honestly, I mean, coming to us with the proposals that we had earlier this year on this, we're really not gonna see a huge increase in these areas until about a year. You know, you're really not gonna see how that's really affected. So we can ask for quick return, we can say 6 months, but the reality is that maybe in a year, we're gonna see some return on this. And the reality, it's the way it is right now. And the caregiving world is extremely understaffed, no matter where you go. Not only is it understaffed, it's underfunded. And that leads to lower wages for people that do, you know, people that should be paid in the level of what teachers should be paid for doing what they do. You know, it's quality of life care that their staff provide. And I think it behooves us to be very patient with this, just because of how that wage study is going to come through and throw another wrench into how we need to compensate for that as well. So I honestly, knowing what goes on in the community world, just we do so much that's so little, and your staff feel the brunt of that. You know, and I just think we just have to be patient and wait for these decisions that we're making on behalf of improving the staff benefits and wages turn into, you know, what they turn into. So that's all I'm going to say. It's more of a comment for the board, in the sense that we've made investments. Sometimes our return on investments, we don't see them for a couple of years. So we have to be a little patient with that. I understand your messaging. I understand. But the reality is that we've just done some investments. We're talking about doing more investments. There's going to be another level of investment, and this probably won't be the last time that we come back to this board with some type of other benefit or some other type of investment in staff as well. So just know that we're open-minded to knowing that we are open to hearing what goes on and doing our best to make them happen.
Have you gone out to talk to consultants that are in the business of raising the level of healthcare, raising the healthcare's profit side of the business? I've got a brother-in-law as a consultant. All kinds of different companies to help them raise the level of knowledge that they are able to bring in.
I actually just came from that. That's where I just came from. Yeah, I worked for a consulting company that was a for-profit consulting company. So I've been in discussion with Doug as far as looking at, we have a meeting scheduled on Monday with the consulting company to come in and propose something to help us with our reimbursement, because I think there's areas of opportunity there that we're leaving some money on the table there in that area. So we have a phone call with them on Monday, and Doug came with me with the email right before we came here with another company that possibly reaching out to as well too, because that is definitely an opportunity I've noticed in my short time.
To raise the value, the return on investments, and raise the levels of what you put into your contingency to the point where you're a more viable candidate for doing these other specialized programs off the side, like this education program, I say, this is really, really good, what you're doing. But you gotta have the backing of return on investment.
Right.
Before you sign off to a lot of this other really small. That's all.
Yep. I think it's good to know too, I mean, just based off of the census and things like local area, if we just do percentage of what our staff, essentially our residents that we have compared to our bed capacity, we're actually doing very well. And sometimes, you know, you get kind of narrow-minded and you say, okay, we got to focus on Parkview. We do, but we also need to know what else is going on. Brewster is running at a lower actually percentage than what we are for their bed openings to the residents there. We just had a consultant with our infection control program that we were appointed for like regionally. She does Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and she actually lives in Michigan. Talked to us and she's like, well, what is your percentage right now for residents? We told her, you know, we're running, you know, 68, 70% for residents at that point. And she's like, wow, you guys are doing really well. And just hearing that from somebody from our local like area, it's kind of refreshing because it's like, okay, we're working on it, but you know, we're not in this alone type situation. So
Anything else about the budget or the ad requests?
I know. Go ahead. Lawnmower replacement. I know that, I know it would. And the first one is, if, Adam, we talked to you and the way that Parks Department and Park, you can share that, I don't know. If it's feasible, maybe might be.
Actually, the lawnmower, replacement was not an add in the budget. That one was also not put in by the executive. So that was, yeah, well, that wasn't added yet. That was one that he did not add in along with the ambulance stuff. So D and F are not added into.
And G, are they?
Yes.
We did remove
Or
E.
let's see,
We
or-
did remove E and we're waiting for the wage analysis to come back on that,
Okay.
along with G, right?
You just tag E and so why don't you wait until after the.
wage analysis.
I
Mhm.
think you did a TO change for that, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
people working on it. People
Yeah, we did change the name.
So the title
So the name
change.
Name is.
No.
No, we're not
Yeah.
doing a TO change for that.
The TO,
So we can just take that one off.
TO has been changed, but they're not funding it for the budget.
no. So, okay, so D, ambulance and receiving door replacement, that was not approved. Okay, E, TO grade change, ADON infection preventionist, that is not being changed at this time.
So we might, sorry, so we might hear about that again in the future.
Correct.
Mhm.
Lawnmower replacement was not added into the budget.
So, I was asking about Iran.
And Mike actually
We
said,
do the lawn care out here. And that's a much smaller lawnmower than what Park uses.
Okay, so does that mean that in the future lawnmower will come out of the parks department then?
No, it'll come out of facilities, maybe. We're talking to it. It's in the Parkview budget. Because of the way Parkview has to recover their costs. So it was mentioned during the budget meeting that we might look at a different way of backfilling facilities equipment to Parkview.
So then the board and the staff wouldn't have to worry about that machinery at all because it would just be part of
Be part of my inventory.
the facilities that.
And you understand that cost.
Yeah.
and then we would just reimburse Mike for the use of the equipment and the labor.
Mhm.
Like, what is something like,
$8,000, $7,000. Yeah, 5 or 6, I think is what he told me. Somewhere around that for a zero turn.
That sounds.
Now, is G in there?
So G, we put through for a TO change, but then the actual grade change is waiting for the wage analysis.
Okay.
So the name change is in there,
Mhm.
just not the dollars.
And then the tuition reimbursement was recent or an ad after the meeting
Okay,
that we want to put in.
so, so then my question, so that's something that you guys brought forward. That all of you staff brought forward.
Mhm.
And you presented that to the county executive?
Mhm.
And what was the county executive's feelings related to that item?
We brought forward the idea, we didn't have the actual budget numbers figured at that point. So then it was brought back to us to go ahead, put that together, resubmit that back. So that's where we're at, is the resubmission process back.
So D, ambulance and receiving bill replacement. I find that's not.
No, that's another one that it's borderline now, you know,
It was in last.
we can go another year,
years
We can
ago.
go another year? All right.
but it's one of these things you start going on a slippery slope. You
I
know,
know, and you always tell us when it's
Yeah.
a slippery slope. Yeah. So I appreciate that because I think ambulance and receiving door is kind of important.
well, it's a passport. It's not,
Yeah, it hasn't really,
yeah.
it really isn't used as an ambulance store right now.
That's why we felt it could wait.
All right, anything else in the budget or the ad request? All right, then we'll move on to item 7, discussion and action, budget transfer of $87,924 from the general fund for water heater replacement.
Right. You're
I
out.
can take it, Frank. We've got 3 water heaters at Park. Number 1 was replaced under warranty 2 years after we opened. These are all the same type of water heaters, and probably 5 to 8 years ago, they've stopped supplying parts for it. So we've been able to get parts through the marketplace until now. And now we've got, I think it's number 3 that has suffered a failure that we cannot get the parts for. And the idea is all of these are of the same model. They're all of the same vintage. If one of them has failed now, it's 2008 is when we opened. We put them in 2007. So they were probably built in 2006. So we're looking at 16 years old right now, and water heaters are usually good for 15 to 20 years. So while we've got 2 of them that are operational, there are areas of it that we can't see where the deterioration is, and that's what happened with number 3. So it would be best for us to get all of them replaced at one time now, because we'll have, excuse me, we'll have some savings due to doing it all at one time. There'll be one mobilization cost for the contractor, one disruption. We'll be able to get 3 of them, and we might get a quantity discount for them. So it's to the point where 2 water heaters will keep us with hot water with Parkview. If we would have another failure, we're not going to be able to keep up with the hot water for the needs for the residents. So it's best that we replace them now.
What happens when you're replacing them? You shut everything down?
No, we, the way they are, they're valved off. So we can take out one, change out the piping and everything, get the new one in, connect it in, get it up and started running. It'll start feeding the water, and then we'll take out the next one.
I noticed that. I noticed also that I use building for the electrics as well as the plumbing. Percentage of markup, and percentage of contingency, and general conditions, all of that. All together, the actual total without the 72,500.
Right.
His overhead and profit comes about 1% of that amount.
That's pretty much what they charge.
I would vote for it right now, to get it in place before you get into the situation.
That's why we're bringing it down as,
Right.
not as part of the budget as needed right now in 2022.
But on top of that, you have a contingency fund. You don't need to go to the general fund or undesignated fund to pull that kind of money. Where you need to get that done now, you've got a contingency fund that you should be able to pull from.
We pull it from the contingency or fund balance, it's pretty much pulling in the same place.
Yeah, I understand that, but it looks a lot better coming from the contingency.
If there's enough left, yeah, I haven't looked at what the contingency fund is.
I'm glad, because I'm going to agree with you, Morris. Stop taking from the general fund. Everything comes through and it's too easy to go. That's right. So I'm going to agree with you. Take it from somewhere else. Take it from.
We do have ARPA funds out there sitting in our general fund. Well, look at it.
I'm not exactly sure if this qualifies.
I guess I would just say, we've passed this on to our finance director, and this is where the money was decided to come out of between he and the county executive. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget transfer of $87,000 from the water heater replacement and probably change it to how.
A motion actually allows us to be able to discuss it further, so I'll second the motion. And I would like to reserve the opportunity to speak next as well.
No, that's, I mean,
Go ahead.
Sure, so, this is for all three.
Yes.
Okay. So the only thing that I don't see, and you kind of alluded to it, is parks. So the second you put in 3 brand new water heaters, something's gonna go within the first year. We know this is just the way it works. The reality, what I would encourage, and I might be more flexible to raising that amount so that we can stockpile some parts, so that it's easier to kind of change out that stuff when it's harder to find them.
This is all new stuff, right?
It comes with a 1-year warranty,
1 year?
1 year or 5 year.
So if you have a warranty on it.
So,
I understand that, but you know, we're gonna, again, you're gonna go through the same thing. This, when I managed properties for 10 years, and this is something that I continually do because as a housing authority property, we only get so much money from the federal government to do this. And we can go back to our funds and our contingencies and do all that. But what you're doing is you're buying up a whole bunch of parts that they're gonna tell you, they're gonna go in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And you're gonna have them in stock already so that when they're super expensive 5 years down the line, you bought them at a price that's more affordable.
And that's part of what we put in there as a contingency amount, so we could use some of that for buying spare parts. Also, no,
but what we have found and what is when we buy the extra parts like that, they sit or they get damaged, and when you need them, they don't.
Yeah, they get moved around and they're not as average expected.
Right.
and
So
we do have money in our building repair account that would be for that type of stuff.
Just a suggestion, it's just the avenue that I use a lot when, you know, trying to.
I appreciate it, and it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Whether we have the parts there, you know, when I first came here, my predecessor had a whole bunch of parts on the shelf, and when we went to use them, they were rusty, and they weren't quality, they weren't good to put in. So it's hard for me to tell the county board I want to spend $5,000 to have parts there, and then 5 years from now go to find that part and it's not serviceable. and then I have to come back and buy it again. And people will remember, well, you bought these parts already, and they were sitting there. I have to say, you know, environmentally, they just didn't last.
You can buy this part if you need this part.
Sure. So I guess the alternative to that suggestion is there, some type of, many times you can buy a contract that have, you know, your water meters looked at every 2 years and such, and to kind of say, well, we can see that this isn't firing on the level that we should be.
We have staff trained to do that.
So
Just
this,
point to you and say, we got that.
staff would do that troubleshooting. But they necessarily wouldn't do the replacement.
They usually do the replacements too.
And so we provided them the proper training to be able to do that as well.
Yep. We have a master plumber on board. We have 2 master electricians. We have the HVAC type people who do the work that does.
I'm sorry.
Well, I
Just
would
just a quick discussion, a quick one. I'll vote for this, but I don't want to come out of general fund, so I'll maybe do some discussion with other people on it. But I,
similar to my comment as well, I think, you know, from my perspective, feels like this is a yes from the perspective of getting the new products in. And certainly, you know, certainly a question for the Personnel and Finance Committee to, I think, dig in a little bit deeper and decide what their, you know, what their prerogative is towards this as well. I think I also, you know, see the argument that it doesn't really matter which year that you're pulling it out of the general fund and then depositing more money from that contingency fund into the general fund to replace it, or you're taking it out of the contingency fund and not putting that money back, you know, at the end of the year. But the contingency seems cleaner and more logical to me, but again, I'll certainly see in a month when this comes to the board.
Don't you think, I mean, what Mike said, when it comes to the county board, or have that wording, whatever Mike Collier thinks the best way to do it. That's the way Ben would usually. We can say it's on the list, and Mike Collier may say, let's do it this way, give me an option, and I think the board will say, let's give me the option to do that. So I'm not against it anymore. I'm saying, no, in reality, it's what Mike Elder, I think Mike Collier would say, let me, the flexibility of taking.
we need to get the project going, is the main concern. Okay, we're good, thank you.
The action. We've already got a motion.
Motion and a second. If there's nothing else, I'll call for a vote.
Call the question.
All right. We'll take a vote on budget transfer of $87,924 from the general fund for water meter replacement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, on to item.
He's good.
Okay. Item is information only, ARPA funding information. We have a link to some more resources there. I think this is kind of a holdover item that we want to keep on. Supervisor Cox, is there anything else that you wanted to offer?
I've got front and feel the brain, but it's, all it is the final rule on what you can use ARPA funds for, okay? All you have to do is read through the thing, it's only about 6 pages long. And you'll know.
The condensed version, because it's like
Isn't it?
180 pages, I think.
This tells you pretty straightforward, and we'll be probably versing and given the whole routine from Tully at the annual meeting, which is coming up. So I will get you a copy. I've got a copy. But I think we should apply. Either apply to the committee. We get past the committee when we have a meeting on the 27th, I believe. And so one of your paperwork that will have to formulate as to your justification for using ARPA funds. Okay. this kind of justification is good. You know, that you just want, you know, of the basics. If you want to pass it through me for that meeting on the 27th, give me a call.
Okay.
Let me know. I'll get on. I'll try to get back to you with that copy just as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
Mailbox or something over at the cab.
Sure. In our office, yeah, just in our office at Parkview.
I'll get it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, I think at the last meeting, I kind of asked for this to be on, because I sit on the same ARPA committee, we have competing interests. So I'm a little bit more, open to the process right now, because we actually have fully defined the process. And part of that is that we were intending to have a meeting on the 13th, which got moved to the 27th, the ARPA Commission Strategic Outcomes Committee. And so really, I thought we were going to have some teeth and some guidance to you at this meeting, which is why I asked for that. And so technically, it isn't out there yet. But what Morris is telling you is to prepare, you know, for something. And basically, when we left our first meeting, was it in July, I think it was. Basically, what the intention, what came out of that meeting was that we wanted to hear from all of staff and all of departments things that they were looking for, that they could benefit from, that could be validated as a response to ARPA, or as a response to the pandemic and things of that area. So, and I want to be honest and transparent. It's best to follow the ARPA kind of standards with that, but at the same time, we do have a little leeway that we don't have to, because of the dollars that we have. They were written off essentially for the county, and it gives us a little bit more flexibility to look outside of just ARPA. So, but in the spirit of it, and I agree with you, Morris, in the spirit of it, we're looking for all requests to be in the spirit of those ARPA funds and the standards that Morris will get over to you guys.
It's important that we don't change the idea that we've got a $32 million loss of money in our general fund. We don't. It's sitting in a separate account, but it has to be justified properly. If it isn't, we're going to face auditors at a later time, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so just for an understanding, 'cause I guess, so if we prepare these requests, are they going through the ARPA committee then to be approved for the ARPA funding, or do they still go through PNF and then PNF appoints it to ARPA, or what is?
It'll be all of them.
Okay,
So, because all requests for the use of those dollars need to start with our Strategic Outcomes Committee. And then it comes through there. It makes its way to the county board through the typical process after that.
okay, so ARPA committee, then PNF, and then county board.
Start for that. I mean, this part committee say these certain things to be included for me. I'm asking this because I asked this a couple of meetings ago, and I'm still waiting to get similar county board members. The committee can have their say in what they think would could be included. Which, you say that departments have been included, but they may have, but I don't think it's been trickled down to a committee level that know what possibly could be considered. You know, this committee has 4 or 5 members, our committee chairman, and our members on the ARPA committee. I guess I would like to know, when do we have to review each one of my committees, and maybe your committees too. When do we start submitting those ideas? And that's what I'm trying to.
One of the reasons why we delayed, we lost our meeting on the 13th, and we changed to the 27th. We had not we had not gotten our, dog from, the last appointment from Nina, which, you know.
Yeah, and yeah, like,
Yeah. So we waited until we got that last appointment from, through John. And now we're just about ready to, pull things together. We need to have input from the various departments. It's gonna go relatively fast, and it will be probably 2 or 3 meetings that we'll sit and we'll deliberate. There have been people that have sent letters in, one for the fire department, one for the conservation of water. I've got something that I'm hoping that we can work with that's has to do with the Tri-City Ice Arena. Those kind of things are open. They haven't been decided. We still want to have your input. Whatever you think is important, you have to, abide by the justifications of each, each rule. Bob, go ahead.
Sure. So Mike, just to kind of respond to you in regards to the process, that hasn't been defined yet in regards to how requests can come from committees and such. So, it's not actually anything that we really talked about when we met that one time either. We kind of met and discussed types of percentages of certain target areas that we want to potentially see the distribution to go towards. And then we were focusing on wanting to hear what are the needs of the functions of the county related to the operations of the county and how these funds might be used to continually address those. We did have talks about how municipalities and other counties are utilizing or creating that formula. And discuss, that some of them are already starting to disperse those funds already. So, but again, where we thought we were going to make some quicker progress, we haven't had a meeting in almost 2 months at this point, and so we're behind in setting that structure. And I think that as committees and as county board persons, Morris talked about an idea that he has. I'm going to have ideas that I bring to that commission as well. And there'll be some private-public partnership ideas that need to take place as well, because we also have people, our external partners that are also interested in using that with potentially strategic ways to address things in our county. So there's a lot of things that need to be put into place. Unfortunately, in the last 2 months, we just haven't been able to get everyone at the table to finalize all that stuff.
so would it hurt? Would it hurt more? Back to you. For Ashley to put some things together in a letter.
No, that's what we're getting at.
Because-
We'll have
Yeah.
the justification in it.
I mean, I would say, and there's no rush to it yet, we still don't know when we're going to disperse. I've heard that we might disperse some funds at our next county board meeting, but that hasn't been run past the ARPA committee yet either. But the reality is, what I would do if I were you, I would encourage you to come up with some ideas, run them past us at next month's meeting, and then we can refine, define, push it along, and that's the direction that the committee wants to go.
What is sad on this is that nobody's seen this. So I tried to read the 467 pages when the document came out, and I thought, this is not for me. Then Morris told me about this, the 6-pager. But I don't believe our department heads have that. So, but of course, you haven't met that much. So,
Well, just before we kind of ventured a little far, if we can just keep it to what we have for this, from our committee.
one of the issues is that we've changed our upper levels, so that we now have an administrator and that. And our administrator is also an acting finance director. All right. He is probably going to be the last word with regard to what goes and what doesn't. But he is a non-voting member of this ARPA committee. And so he will oversee what we come up with. And then make some selections and go back to the various people and designated justifications, okay? And say, okay, this is what you have to do in order to get the bucks. And so just write a summary justification as to what direction you want to go. I will make sure that one of my copies as soon as I get that.
Any suggested topics for our next meeting? Okay. Then we'll set our next meeting date, October 20th, 2022 at 3:30. That present any problems?
Not as a final.
As long as they don't have trick or treating that day.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Just a copy back.
I just want to apologize for my little asthma attack there.
It's okay.
Well, she's trained. Not a nurse.